Today, we are going to be looking at perlage. Perlage is one of the traditional finishing techniques that you will see on many luxury watches, and it consists of making small, overlapping circular patterns on different parts of the movement. Now, you might think that all movement finishing is created equal, but that is not always the case. The perlage itself can be applied in small or large patterns, and they can also be done by hand or mechanically applied. Perlage takes a lot of skill and focus to get right. So in this video, we'll talk about how it's done, and we'll also look at some examples from a few of my favorite brands, Girard Perregaux, Dan Royter, and Jaeger-LeCoultre. Now, I'm James. I'm a watch collector, enthusiast, and advisor. I've been collecting for almost a decade, and the goal of my channel is for you to know and love your watches. So please like the video if you enjoy this type of content, and subscribe to get new videos every week. With that, let's jump into the topic. So what exactly is perlage? It's a finishing technique that's used on watch movements. Now this is my Girard Perregaux 1966 Orion, and it's a fine example of what good-looking perlage looks like. The primary reason for adding perlage to a watch is pretty simple. It's to showcase the watchmaking prowess of the watchmaker and to decorate the movement. And when it's done right, you'll notice a shimmering cloud-like texture on the surfaces, such as the bridges, the base plate, or under the rotor on your automatic watches. So first thing you have to do is prepare the surface where you're going to add your perlage. Here, it's noticeable on the base plate of the watch. First, you have to make sure that the surface is machined properly so that it's flat. There needs to be an even surface for you to apply the perlage, so that it comes out very symmetrical and even, as you can see in this example. Now, once it's finished, the watchmaker will clean that surface, and you may end up with some polishing as well, depending on where in the watch that is going to be happening. Now next, you secure the piece that you're going to add the perlage to so it doesn't move during the process. And once it's secure, the watchmaker uses an abrasive tool, which is typically a small rotating peg, and it's attached to a special machine. This is what's used to actually grind into the metal surface. And each circle is then created, the peg rotates, and the piece we're adding the perlage to gets moved around slightly so that each new circle overlaps the previous one by about halfway. And then from there, that can be repeated hundreds and hundreds of times across a given component. You can see that here. And it's not uncommon for part of that to be hidden away by something like the bridges. Now you can see the consistent pattern across this entire base plate. The pressure and the spacing are what create that uniform look to your perlage. Now, as I mentioned, not all perlage is created equal. You can definitely see the uniformity of both the spacing and the luminescence of each circle here on this Girard Perregaux. And this is often a sign of mechanically applied perlage. Now, this doesn't make it inferior to doing it by hand, but just has more of a machined quality to achieve that level of perfection in the spacing. Now, let's take a look at some examples of hand-applied perlage. So this is my Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Ultra Thin Perpetual Enamel. And if you're not familiar with JLC, they are one of the brands most known for their movements, and particularly supplying movements to other high horology brands, which is one of the reasons they're often known as the watchmaker's watchmaker. Now, while JLC does have quite an impressive pedigree when it comes to watchmaking, their movement finishing is often nicely done, I would say, for the price point. It's appropriate to the watches they make and sell, and I think overall, many people would love to see the same level of artistry they apply to their dials, in many cases, to their movements. So, when we're looking at this one, you can see some nicely laid perlage once again, primarily on the base plate, and this time it looks a bit more naturally done. The circles aren't quite as perfect as they are on the Girard Perregaux, indicating that this is likely done by hand. You can see the variation in the spacing of some of the circles applied to the base plate. And while still decorative, it's evident that JLC is using larger graining in some spots and smaller graining in others. Overall, a well-executed movement here, I would say. Now, let's take a look at what I think is the nicest example of perlage that we will see today, and that is on my Dan Royter chronograph. Now, Dan is an independent watchmaker out of New York, and although he uses ETA movements in his watches, you can definitely tell when you flip this over that there has been some special modification to the movement here. In particular, you can see not only the hand engraving on the rotor, but also the finishing that Dan has taken the time to apply to various components under this caseback. And one of those details of finishing is, of course, the perlage. Now, in looking at this movement, you can see there's some very neatly done perlage on this rose gold bridge that's normally hidden underneath the rotor, as well as the balance bridge, which is here, also done in steel. And then there's more perlage laid on the base plate once again, as you've seen on the two prior examples. Dan really does a brilliant and beautiful job of customizing these ETA movements to make them really one of a kind as far as watch finishing goes. So that is perlage. Among the best in the movement finishing category here would be brands like Elanco and Sona or Vacheron Constantin, for example. So if you want to see some more examples, definitely check out those other great brands, and there are many more. So what brand do you think has the best movement finishing, whether in your own collection or in general? I'd be curious to know. Leave me a comment down below, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.